Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast. I am your host, Jeffrey Stern, and today we are going to do something a little bit different. My guests this week are my friends and partners over at Impact Architects, who many of you will note are the longest time supporters of the Lay of the Land podcast and the community building work that we are doing together. Kris Snyder and Jim Haviland, who have spent over a decade together as serial entrepreneurs building companies like 90, Vox Mobile, and Impact Architects here in Cleveland. For the last year or so, Jim, Kris, and I have sat down to debrief Lay of the Land episodes after they are published. And I have always been so enamored by the insights that Jim and Kris have been able to extract from each episode that I've come to personally look forward to their learnings and musings, much like I do from my favorite podcast that I listen to. So I'm thrilled to announce here today that they have opened up these insights and weekly debriefs in the form of a video podcast so that more people can tune in and benefit from them as I have. Available now, you will be able to join their quick discussions, debrief of Lay of the Land, and recapping of other developments in Cleveland's entrepreneurial community going forward. In this week's episode, I am republishing their account of Craig Hassall, CEO of Playhouse Square and Lay of the Land's 175th conversation. Weekly Impact by Lay of the Land is linked in today's show notes, and I'd encourage you to search for it in your podcast player now and subscribe to not miss episodes like this one and others like their reflection on Matt Booter Shapiro, Lay of the Land's 14th and 170th episodes, whose company, Vitalize Health, was just ranked number 1 on the 2024 Inc. 5000 list as the fastest growing company in the country, with $1.5 billion in revenue last year, a 3-year top-line growth of 90,778%. And that is not a typo. So with that, please enjoy Weekly Impact with Kris Snyder and Jim Haviland.
Hello and welcome everyone to Lay of the Land Weekly Impact. I'm Jim Haviland.
I'm Kris Snyder.
Kris, it is the 22nd of July. Summer's going by like lickety-split.
I can't believe it, Jim.
And today,
Slow down.
Today we have the third in like a series, I think. I don't know if Jeffrey didn't say it was meant to be, but the last 3 shows have really been about non-traditional entrepreneurial journeys. So we had Mitchell Vargo, who's making great places to go hang out and party and have a good time, which is a great thing I didn't know anything about.
Going forward.
Then we had the Double G Films, who made me cry last week with their upcoming film release of Lost and Found in Cleveland. Can't wait for that. And now we're talking about Craig Hassall, who is an internationally renowned creator of events. Is that a way of putting it? I mean, he's done the Olympics and festivals and all amazing stuff. And he's now in charge of Playhouse Square.
Yeah, Jim, this is the first podcast I sent to my kids who are, 16 and 19. I mean, we're kind of
They're theater kids,
family who love musicals.
Yeah.
And, he had such a great story.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll listen, but I did send it. I texted it to them, right? So we'll see. But I thought it was really cool. I'm sure we're going to get into it, but lots of great things.
The kids, it gets downplayed. It should have been someone else sending it to them. Like Dad's in it. Oh, it's going to be lame.
Well, maybe it was a TikTok and I would have got more.
Yeah, probably. We'll work on that. So Craig Hassall, number 175, does a great job of talking through his journey of discovery about Cleveland. And I think this is true. This was true in the last couple of shows we listened to when there's outsiders. And this is true Jeffrey's story as well. It's like realizing this is an amazing place.
Yeah, I had a reflection back to, I think you've heard me tell the story before, when Dan Gilbert first came and he bought the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yeah. There was a I don't know, I think it was Cranes did a whole meet Dan. And so we got there and, people were excited. We didn't know really who Dan was at the time. Right. And then he got up on stage and he chastised us because we're supposed to be leaders in the city, invite only type of moment. And he basically said, look, he's like, I don't understand why you're so down on your city. He's like, I'm from Detroit. He's like, we got more problems and I'm not down on the city. He's like, y'all need to find it because you're so worried about everyone else feeling this way that you've adopted that feeling and you're projecting on yourselves. And I felt like that was kind of a similar sentiment that he was sharing on the podcast, right? It was like, look, outside of maybe the U.S., no one thinks of Cleveland that way. They may not think of Cleveland often enough, but they definitely don't have a negativity towards it.
I mean, I remember when I first came back to Cleveland, my second tour of duty, I like to say, but it was around 2000, and they did a study. It was for the Greater Cleveland Partnership, but Growth Association, I think is what they were calling it then. And they did a study on what international leaders thought of Cleveland. And it was then right after 9/11, the report came out. And the good news is we're not going to get attacked because no one knows where we are.
Well, Craig even said that. He's like, I'd heard of it, but I didn't quite know where it was.
Couldn't know where it was. Yeah, right. Yeah. And it is and it is a rich history. But I think it's very much like what they talked about in last week's show, the level of authenticity and kind of active pride in the city. Like people will work here to keep things here, to make things work. And I know with other ventures I've been, they're very, like my sister's restaurant, where if you're new, like, I don't know about you yet. But once you're there, it's like, no, we love you. You're staying. We're gonna. If you ask the question, then that's going to be, it's a wonderful life moment. We're all going to empty the kitty to come help you out.
Yeah.
And I see that happen again and again. So he called out a number of great things happening. I think that are changing that tone though. Justin Bibb, he was show 15, has been doing a lot to kind of change the tone of that. And I think, we've seen, certainly it's been on, we want to do that. It's part of our flywheel to get people to know that you can do great things here.
Yeah. Well, it's also, they talked about the cyclical nature of a city, right? Like San Francisco's probably in a down cycle. Austin's probably peaked, but starting to come. You're right. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause, So I think every city has some cycles. And I think he was advocating that we're probably on the up cycle, right? That we've got enough momentum. Things are going on. Yes, we still have challenges. All cities do. But we got some momentum, and that's probably good to consider.
I was thinking about that because I compare it to like real estate in Cleveland. We didn't boom, or we haven't busted.
Right.
Wouldn't it be nice if we just kind of continue to rise gracefully?
I think that's
I believe it can happen.
Well, boom and bust are hard cycles. So
they're hard cycles, man. Because you break things you don't want to break is the problem. Right. On the downside, it isn't like you get to choose. I mean, stuff's going to break. And so that gentle rise, I'm happy with that. That's a good model.
I also want to call out, like, because me, when we start working with clients on the coaching side, one of my favorite things to do is kind of vision sessions.
Yes.
Right. And so hearing him really start to kind of debate with his team around like, how big is this vision, right? And to say 100%. That for me, and I think he'd agree, it doesn't have to be overly specific. It's directional in its nature, and it's as far as the founding members, the visionary, if you want to call it that, in the moment can see out. Right. And I love the fact that he's going to surprise the world, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And to say that it shouldn't just be Northeast Ohio, it shouldn't just be the U.S. Yeah. And it shouldn't be surprising to us when you have somebody really like Craig who has a global view. Right.
100%. Why not? Why not? Well, and I think and then we talk about it, to dig into that. I mean, that really important differentiator between your purpose and your niche. Right. So if you're going to, in your niche, you want to be specific. Like this is where we're going to, attack right now. Yeah. What we're going to do. But their purpose should be expansive as you want it to, because you're not going to accomplish your purpose. Right. Like, I just want to be the best on this city block. It's like you should be trying to, what would it look like if we did this? How would we go beyond what we're doing right now? Why not challenge the world?
Yeah. And obviously fans of Simon Sinek and the Just Cause, right? Yes. And he often says, when you're working on the world in which you believe and the world in which you vision, it is your time for your "I have a dream" speech, not your "I have a plan" speech, yes. Right? And I think that's similar to the way that. And
our desire to be practical, kind of gets in the way of that sometimes. But I love that. Love to shout out to Justin Bibb. It was a great conversation, and definitely. If you want to go to school a little bit on creating your vision, this is a good episode for you. All right. So I also want to talk about, Kris, very similar to that. I had a great introductions of value story, and I'll have you talk about introductions of value here in a second. But so I was following up with one of the Lay of the Land alumni, and I won't call him out. He can talk about it later. Right. It's his story to tell, not mine. But I was talking to him because he said maybe wanted to start working together, and I met him at one of the Lay of the Land monthly events. If you want to learn about that, let us know. But that's where Jeffrey's done this great thing, coordinating these smaller events and introducing people to each other, which is a great thing to do.
Because it's around connectivity, and I think we're giving people the opportunity in small groups to break bread together, have a dinner. We envision having breakfasts and some things too, but as this community continues to get curated deeper, or as we talk about episode 175, right, and on another 2030 that's been recorded, the community is getting large, right?
And there's so much connectivity to be had because we focus so much as entrepreneurs on doing our thing, And so, I mean, like there are people I didn't know existed that have been on the show, right? So, and just imagine that times 175. We all have people we haven't met yet, and curating those things. That's a great event. I met a handful of people there that I hadn't met before, including this one member and he's building a great business. He's doing a great job, has amazing opportunities for him. But as he sometimes do, he was a little bit maybe optimistic and overextended a little bit. And he said, this is what my biggest problem is right now. I said, well, so I spent about an hour with him breaking it down because that's what we do. We don't sell, we coach. So I coached him out. I said, okay, this is what I can do. And so I met with Jeffrey afterwards. Like, Jeffrey, this is what I'm going to solve. I'm going to talk to these people. Who else should I talk to? And Jeffrey, had great memory. We picked 3 people I was going to reach out to. I picked out 3 people. Within 48 hours, Kris, I had 10 people coming back. How can I help? Asking details. How can I step up? I mean, we're all busy, Kris. Like these weren't people that sitting around. These were all founders and entrepreneurs and people, and including one that was a perfect fit. Fit. And I made the introduction of value. It's like, hey, this is my vision for how you guys work together. This is this person that wearing these great things, this thing of things, and they just connected. But for us, I mean, this is so exciting to me because it is the flywheel we've been trying to build with the Lay of the Land, with the Lay of the Land events, with our work in general, our purpose in general.
Yeah. Well, and so that story, other people have those stories before, right? But they did it more accidentally. The way in which you're doing it is intentionally. Back to one of our favorite words there, right? Like
intention,
and with the intention and the design that talk about what is an introduction of value. It's an intentional way to introduce 2 parties, right? And because people do it all the time in connecting and networking,
meet my friend, chat.
But it's hard to know, like, why am I taking that introduction, right? But if you can describe in a superlative way, right, in a trusting way, what that they're going to get out of it, what those 2 parties, why are you taking the time to make that introduction? Then I think it's actionable.
You infuse it with context. So this is why you should talk to each other. And if you're superlative, if your intention is to transfer trust, to remove caveat emptor, like, why am I talking to you?
Right.
If you know that's your job, that is the point of making an introduction. Then now they have a reason to talk. Now they have a process to talk. Now they have subject matter to talk about, and that's a much better chance of making something happen.
The antithesis of this is all the trash that we see on LinkedIn and emails that are spamming us saying, hey, my CEO or my so-and-so said I should reach out to you because. It's like, well, A, I don't know that person or trust that person, right? So how can I? I don't know them. I can't trust them. B, that's just a BS way to come at me, right? Like, so I do believe what we're trying to do with this, with high trust relationships, the transfer, the extension of trust in these introductions of value is really how our community can make those types of experiences like you just described really happen.
Kris, I think about this in terms of like you and I have been on this journey for 20 some odd years right now. Trust at scale. What does that look like? But it's real. You've got to create, it can't just be news, weather, and sports. You have to have the deeper conversation.
Yeah.
That's what the work to be done, man. So
frequency, depth, and duration, man.
Last thing I want to shout out, Cleveland Greater Cleveland Partnership. We'll talk more about them. They're having a great event in the fall that I'll be speaking at. I can't wait for that. But for this week, Cleveland Innovation Summit going on Tuesday evening, 6 to 8, I think. You can look online. You can find registration for that. But Jeffrey's actually doing a panel there. Congratulations, Jeffrey, on that. And it's going to have and there's really, it's what's fun, Kris. I'd say 80% of the people speaking there are going to be people that have been on the show. So we're doing a pretty good job of coverage. Yeah. But Dallas Hogginson from Felix is going to be there on the panel. Drew Anderson from Central Kitchen, his partner, was it Eric Diamond? Yeah, he was on Show 54. Ray Leach, Show 69 from Ohio Fund. They just launched that. That's going to be interesting to hear about. And Todd Fetterman, our good friend and partner, who is from North Coast Ventures, number 28. So lots of stuff to go on there. That should be a fun event, and we'll talk about it next week probably.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have an impactful week. Jim and Kris, thanks so much, man.
I appreciate it, Jim. Thanks.
Take it, bye.
Bye.